All right, one sec. Stay there.
What is this?
Your birthday present that was here in time for your birthday.
Alrighty. Matching green corner caps.
It's not matching.
This is a beautiful hat. Hold on, I'm certainly gonna need to make this larger. Well, maybe not.
Look at him.
Get the caps on. She's a beauty.
There you go.
Now we have official uniforms.
That went so good.
We did it.
Happy birthday, pal. Green corner.
Green corner. We got a lot of loyal viewers here at the Green Corner, Avery, and we get requests.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a big one. People loved our Hell House episode. They're like,
Right.
You got to keep watching them. We should go watch Hell House 3. That's on the list.
And 4 and
Phantasm
5.
and 4 and 5. Phantasm also has a big following. People are like, you should check them out. There's lots of other Phantasms. So I think we made a compromise today that'll make everyone happy.
Exactly.
We're appealing to the people and to Hollywood, because this week we watched Hundreds of Beavers. The movie everyone asked us to watch.
This was my pick.
It was.
For a Green Takes. I thought it'd be fun. This is a movie I had just heard whisperings of on the fringes of the internet.
Okay.
The odd kind of Reddit or Instagram comments section from the movie nerds when people were just mentioning, kind of similar to When Evil Lurks or Late Night with the Devil, where it's like an independent movie that just broke through a little bit.
It's just like When Evil Lurks.
It's basically When Evil Lurks 2. And I just thought it might be fun to check it out, and when I get like I'll check that out, then this is the time. Good format.
I had never heard of this
Right.
at all.
Okay.
Like, not even, and I guess it did, technically it came out in 2022, but I think it only had an international release more recently or something, because I've also seen some buzz about it since you brought it up. So what this is, it's a movie done in the style of the silent film era. I don't know anything about the silent film era. I don't know what years this would have been replicating. I think like 20s?
Yeah, I mean, I can come up with the names Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. That's all.
Yeah.
That's you've heard it all I've got.
And I'm sure that's scratching the surface. That's
Yeah.
probably like the normie knowledge. I don't know. But these guys made this black and white, silent era film, slapstick comedy
Yeah,
about a drunk Applejack salesman
right.
who loses his Applejack farm in an explosion and then starts selling beaver pelts to try to marry the local guy's daughter.
Yeah, what are you not understanding? That's pretty straightforward.
This movie is something. I don't even know where to start with this thing.
I want to start by saying just that I was laughing the whole time. This is one of the funnest movies I've watched in a very long time.
It's really funny.
It's really funny.
I think it was so weird, it took my brain a while to get that it was funny.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, what the heck? Because I literally went in blind. Like, didn't know this was going to be the aesthetic of the movie blind.
Okay, that's blind.
So I'm like, is this the intro? And then it's going to like cut? No, it's the movie.
No. So
It's the whole movie.
The whole thing, you're following one character, Jean Kayak, who...
That makes sense. I was calling him Gene Kayak,
yeah.
but I guess...
Maybe it's Gene. I don't know, Gene Kayak sounds better, but he's also kind of a voyageur guy. So
Yeah,
I
it's
think
kind of French.
And you get an opening song where he has an Applejack orchard where he's making apple booze.
Seeking the dark secrets of Applejack, but drinks to the door far and wide.
Gets destroyed by beavers, little does he know. Then he spends the next hour learning how to kill forest animals that are all just guys in fursuits.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's era accurate as much as they could within the budget.
Yeah.
It actually looks like the movies it's kind of paying an homage to most of the time.
I thought it was effective. I suspect that if there was someone old enough, they would have the same qualms you had about Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I
If
was
a
thinking.
140-year-old guy watched this, he'd be like, that's not what the grain looked like, and would probably be annoyed. But it looked like a Charlie Chaplin movie to me.
For us modern movie folks, I think it looked good enough. And yeah, I mean, the animals are guys in suits.
Which-
you can see the zippers. it committed to it.
And
And that almost makes it okay.
Oh, it made it great. They did so much with it. Like,
Yeah.
it's just the physical comedy they got out of this. I mean, it was just really fun.
Yeah, it upholds, for any inconsistencies in the filmmaking, it upholds its own internal logic.
Yeah.
The animals look like this. This guy does this stuff. Like, it maintains a Looney Tunes-like logic that it maintains throughout. I guess it's Green Take. We should talk about whether or not, what our first impressions were.
Yeah.
So, I have never been more confused by my feelings about a movie. Because this is the best and only silent slapstick comedy I've ever seen.
Right.
So I don't really know how I'm supposed to feel. I think it was really well made.
Yeah.
I assume. Again, if someone's like, oh, that was the worst silent film era slapstick I've ever watched, I'd be like, whoa. Or if someone was like, that was the most faithful adaptation and improved on the style in all these amazing ways, I'd also be like, oh. I'm really glad I watched it. It's an experience. I don't think I would have watched it if we didn't watch it for the show. It was a good excuse to watch it. I can't say I loved it.
Okay.
I appreciated it. I respect the heck out of it. But I did also, 30 minutes in, I was kind of like, all right, I get it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I needed it to be an hour and 47 minutes.
That is for sure the weirdest decision. I mean, I will say this is obviously this gentleman's passion project.
It's his first feature.
Yeah, it's his first feature. And this is obviously a labor of love. But like, this is one or a couple of people's vision and been working at it since high school. And they got it done. And I can't begrudge him too much for making it just too long.
Yeah.
This could have been 45 minutes and it wouldn't have diminished it.
I think it would have been a good short film, but I also kind of think this guy has done a number of short films, and this was finally him getting to do his feature. So I don't want to take that away from him. God bless this man and his team. But it was a little long, but yeah, it was a crazy experience. I don't have too much more to say. How did you feel about Hundreds of Beavers, Avery?
I did love it.
Okay.
I was laughing the whole time, and despite the fact that it was an hour and 48, that was more of an inconvenience for me just for scheduling, but like, I was never bored. And I was laughing like at the gags right up till the end. The way they just kept escalating. I do think this was brilliantly made. I mean, it's not prestige cinema. This is not going to get Oscar buzz, but I just think it was quite a challenge to pull this off.
Yeah.
To make this. I mean, this is obviously a mix of so many weird things, and to make it fairly tight and make sense and just funny throughout. To me, like, I also haven't seen a lot of silent slapstick. And I think this did do a good job of it. But it was also funny to me in the way that like The Simpsons or Family Guy is funny.
It had like, contemporary humor woven in.
It felt like a merging that in a way that was surprising. It felt like kind of, I mean, I made the comparison, the call back with House of Usher, how it took very old school horror and kind of brought some of those themes and that storytelling into the modern era and sort of merged it well. And obviously this isn't horror, but kind of the way it took like 20s comedy.
Yeah.
But told with the sense of humor of someone who's 35 years old or whoever the guy is.
Right.
In a way that I was really impressed by, and I just think the fact that by like the first hour of this being funny and interesting is fine. Like, good job. The last 20-30 minutes still being funny and me not checking my phone to be like, come on, like, let's wrap it up here.
Right.
That isn't like quite an achievement.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess I half agree.
Yeah.
It's a huge achievement. I think the movie's biggest mistake was the first 30 minutes or so.
Okay.
Because I think the last half hour of this movie is actually brilliant.
Yeah.
The Beaver Dam isn't just good with the asterisk of this is good for a cheap, low-budget movie. They pulled it off. It's good in like I don't think Martin Scorsese trying to do that would have done a better job.
Yeah,
like, I think they pulled it off perfectly.
This is like Sin City.
Yeah, like visually, in terms of how they execute all the stunts and all the different crazy set design. I don't know how they did it. It's actually like a feast.
I mean,
kind of to tie it back to what I'm trying to say, the beginning of the movie, when it's a guy walking around, it's much more low stakes. He's wandering around in his underwear. He's trying to hunt raccoons and beavers. It started to drag a bit for me, and I did have a bit of existential dread of like, oh God, is it this for an hour and 40 minutes? And I did check out. And the movie got me back in the second half. Once it gets more stuff and it gets more crazy and out there and more Looney Tunesy.
Sure.
And they up the stakes, they up the production design. The ending, it ramps beautifully. But I didn't have enough faith in the first half that it did lose me a bit, and then it won me back in the end. But I think when we're talking about trimming, they needed to trim down the sections that were more man walking around in the woods and have more of the movie be the excellent parts, I think.
Yeah.
But the excellent parts were excellent. And like, I don't know how, I couldn't tell you how to do them better.
Right. So I think we should give a little bit more context to what we're saying. This is not really a movie you can spoil. I mean, I recommend it. Like, yes, we'll be giving away some plot details, but like, they're not going to make sense, and it's not detracting from like the narrative of the movie. If you want to see it unspoiled, sure, but...
Do you recommend it no asterisks?
I think,
or do you have asterisks around your recommendation?
I think if like the first line of our review of this is a slapstick comedy about an drunken Applejack salesman murdering beavers, if that gets you there, just go watch it. If you're on the fence, hear us out.
Because I would recommend this in the way that I would recommend Twin Peaks, which is I will recommend it to certain people under heavy curation. To make sure the stage is set appropriately, to make sure expectations are set accordingly, and not just like, it's great, go watch it. And then they put it on, they're like, why would they tell me to watch this?
There was a fish in the percolator.
The movie happens and there's kind of an arc to it. There's a few acts. We start off with he owns an Applejack brewing company, basically, which he destroys by being drunk and also beavers. Then he spends the second act like freezing to death trying to find food in the woods, and like cartoonishly, like Looney Tunes, like stuff's falling on his head. The third act, he kind of he's learning to become an effective trapper.
Yeah.
He finds this shopkeeper who has this like video game job board for him, where he's becoming a good trapper. He's collecting dead animals so that he can buy his way up the chain. And then the fourth act, as we mentioned, is the Beaver Dam.
Well, it's kind of like a 3.5 act, because then he becomes like, he gets mentored by the master trapper / Santa, and he becomes a better trapper.
Yeah.
And then that's when they do the map of the trap line. And that's kind of like it. He becomes a better trapper for a while.
And it kind of feels episodic, almost in the way something like, I don't know, like Fargo was, where they really do kind of, each one is contained. And if you watch I actually did end up watching them kind of one by one.
Okay.
And it made a lot of sense because they like roll credits like 3 times.
And the opening credits aren't until like 30 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's very experimental.
Alas, our man's put down his Applejack. The path it is frozen but clear. He's put on his head.
After he becomes a master trapper, then he's sort of been accosted by the beavers, and he's in a feud with the beavers. It's hard to even talk about.
By Sherlock Holmes, Watson
Beaver.
Beaver.
Sherlock Holmes and Watson, yeah. And then, so he goes into the Beaver Dam, which, as it turns out, is a space facility, like a NASA launch pad that they've been building through the whole movie. Breaks in, recovers his hundreds of dead beavers, and that's sort of your big climax.
And sells them back to the merchant so that he can marry his daughter.
Right. And then also just kiss the merchant, which is our final.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's Hundreds of Beavers.
So that's our acts. That's how it's split up.
That's how it goes.
And I'm just impressed at how much and often and in different ways this film kept making me laugh. It is really, really clever. The amount of stuff that they find to do with just this, like some of it doesn't land. There's some like very basic Looney Tunes stuff of him just like falling out of the same tree 8 times. So I'm just like, eh.
Yeah.
But then there's some stuff like I mean, there's so many I could go through, but when he punches like the beaver's skeleton like out of the rest of it.
That's really good. This is a very weird one, but he builds a snowman to help with fishing.
Right.
And the snowman's arm, when it gets weighted by the fish, raises his other arm to signal that the fish is ready to be retrieved. And as he's walking out on the ice, the snowman does the dip. And he goes, "Oh, hi." It's just so stupid.
If you're going into this movie, you have to be you have to let yourself laugh at stupid stuff. This is not high concept, a lot of it. Like, it's clever,
It's really clever lowbrow humor.
Yeah. It's like I brought up the Simpsons. It's kind of the like good Simpsons or Family Guy.
Yeah.
Like it's nowhere near as fillery and lazy as most of that. But it's like those little bits in Family Guy when you're a teenager, you're like, that's clever. Good for that.
Clever.
That's like this whole movie is stuffed
Or
with those.
the Master Trapper has all the sled dogs. And the first night, all the sled dogs are playing poker around the little table next to the campfire, and then the dogs are slowly killed by wolves. And when there's one dog left, it cuts to that shot, and he's playing solitaire. And I'm like, all right, that's good. You did it.
My favorite bit, I think, was when he's tracking the rabbits. And at first, it's just the tracks through the snow. And then the tracks, it's just like these rabbits' entire life story.
They have kids.
He goes up to like a wedding, and then it's like the prince in the snow where they had sex in like 100 different positions, then like had kids.
And then he cooks the kids.
Yeah.
Is the punchline. Well, I think that's something that I really appreciated, is that even if a joke didn't land, they actually built up jokes throughout the movie to serve the plot. So he would learn something, and then it would pay off later in the movie, how he would use that thing. Like, he learns that icicles fall from trees and block people off, which has some jokes early on. And then later in the movie, he uses that to actually blockade in the wolves into their cave.
Yeah.
And it's like they actually utilize, there's like callbacks, and there's very like, they kind of do weird as this sound, there's good world building.
Yeah.
There's actual like logic that is built up within the logic of the movie that is utilized in the plot, which I did not think this movie would do.
Well, it felt like a video game. It felt like something like Breath of the Wild. It's probably a great example.
No, I was thinking it's like watching someone play Minecraft.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like you learn that you need a frog to trap a skunk, and then you use the skunk to gas the beaver, and then you use the beaver to get 2 coins to buy rope, and it just keeps, and then it uses the rope to do a thing, and you're like,
and then it goes to the level of he's being like a speedrunner. Like there's the one part where he sets up the spinning log trap to like, it's like a log with a spike that swings down, and the first joke is that it spins so fast it like blows him away. But then by the end, he set up 10 of these that are like moving beavers like a conveyor belt all over the whole.
And he set up like a bat in the wind vortex to knock beavers out automatically. Like, and that's what I was saying. That stuff was so clever, but it took 45 minutes to get there. And I really think that if the movie was shorter and it got to that level of creativity faster, I think that might have been a movie I loved. But there was a little too much filler and downtime before it kind of got to those peaks. I think that's where the pacing killed me a little bit, because once I got to that stuff, I'm like, if you could do this, if you had the ability, the creativity, and then also the actual ability to execute on that and have all this stuff work visually, I wish the whole movie was at this level. I get they wanted to build up to it, but I don't know. I could see it losing people early on.
I agree. Like I do think that's where you trim it down a little bit and you get to the better stuff faster, but I guess I appreciated that there was, it was not easy to make a compelling narrative. And they did.
They did.
Right? This is mostly just funny vignettes, right? Like funny little set pieces and clever jokes. But I did find myself pretty invested. And in the first little bit where he's like wandering around frozen and starving, like, it's a Looney Tunes bit. I'm not worried he's gonna die.
Yeah.
But I still I got invested. And when he starts becoming a halfway, like he catches his first fish and actually keeps it, I'm like, oh, good for him.
Yeah.
And then as he's getting better and learning this stuff, I feel like I'm coming along with him. It's like watching someone learn how to play a video game.
It is.
Where when they start out and they're just falling out into the lava and dying to the first skeleton, but then by the end they're an expert and you feel like you went along for it. And it feels earned. It was satisfying, and it was a nice way to kind of keep you moving through the jokes for the first hour. This does kind of lead into something else I wanted to talk about, which I think one of the reasons why I would say I loved this, it is shocking how many individual points of nostalgia this hit for me.
Okay.
And it's not even the black and white thing. I'm not nostalgic for Charlie Chaplin stuff.
Right.
I've never watched that. But just to get into a little bit, I mean, I talked about the idea of playing, learning a new video game, learning a dumb little crafting video game. This tickled that same part of my brain and made me feel like a kid trying out a mini clip game for the first time, like throughout the whole
I
thing.
agree, yeah.
I also think like just this whole lumberjack voyageur aesthetic. Like I grew up in Northern Ontario, right? And the filmmaker's from Green Bay, and it's actually set in Green Bay, as you find out. Like that's also a very nostalgic thing. It made me think of like sitting in class, in like history class, learning about fur traders in a cute little way.
Yeah.
I also just like the sense of humor being kind of Monty Python, kind of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, very Monty Python. Even the art sometimes veering into Monty Python.
And then I also talked about kind of Family Guy and The Simpsons, where I think just some of the clever bits were very evocative of good cartoon shows. There was just so many different things that made me feel like a little kid, and this would only apply to someone exactly my age, or like maybe 5-10 years older.
Right.
Also, who probably grew up in like Ontario, the Northeast, right? This is
or Wisconsin.
So specific, but for me, all this little stuff, I just enjoyed watching it so much, and it just warmed my heart.
It did give me that like grade school social studies pioneer week vibe. That I know what you're talking about.
But the fact that it was also funny and it wasn't just a boring, terrible, like low production value video.
It very quickly demonstrates to you that how much they care and how much love and care and attention to detail they put in.
Yeah.
That even though you can tell how low budget this is, you at no point feel like you're watching something that's not worth watching.
Like a school video where they're teaching you about the pioneers, and it's just like they shot this for $40 in somebody's backyard.
At a glance, I could understand that being the impression it leaves, but in moments, it demonstrates that is not the case. There is so much love and attention to detail. I was thinking a lot about the game Cuphead.
Yeah.
Not the style's a bit different. They're both old school, but
it's a slightly different era. But
yeah, but Cuphead's just one of those games where I played it. I didn't love playing it. It was too hard, and it's to be honest, just like very challenging. But I'm sitting down and I'm like, wow, someone really did it. Someone put in so much effort to make this accurate and has such a love for this style and this aesthetic, and I got the same sense from this movie.
I think that's a good line to draw, for sure. I'm very interested. I want to go watch some interviews like with the filmmaker and with the crew, because I want to hear about it.
I couldn't find much.
No.
It's very, like, this is the filmmaker's first movie. The actor who plays Jean Kayak, he's done this and I think one other movie with the filmmaker, and he wrote this movie with the director. So it's clearly just buddies. Like, they're friends that do this, right?
I don't think it makes a ton of sense. We can't really talk a lot about the performances. I think they were all fine.
Well, let's talk about Jean Kayak.
Yeah. I think he was good.
I think he was really good.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what a silent film performer bar is.
Well, I mean, the bar is that you enjoyed it, right? Like, this isn't made for audiences in the 20s. It's made for us now. And the fact that we got it the whole time, right? You could tell he was telling the story with no words, but then the comedy landed. Because I'm sure it's underrated how hard it is when you just have to go, eh. Like, to make that funny versus not funny is hard.
That's what I was thinking. I think he did a really good job.
Yeah.
Because I always knew what he was thinking. When he was supposed to be funny, I think he was. The most impressive part for me was the physical comedy, and the fact that he clearly did his own stunts, at least most of them. Because, I mean, I know that it's super low budget and it seems like that might be kind of obvious, but a lot of movies will still use stunt doubles or find cheap ways to do things, but there are many shots where he's tackling beavers, or the one where he's falling down a hill, then he falls into the bucket, and then the bucket dumps him out, and then he falls again, and he falls in it again. That's him.
Yeah.
And like, he's out there in the snow in his underwear. Like, he really put everything out there for this performance, and he did all the actual physical stuff, and he committed to the physical comedy in a way that I appreciated, because I could see the mindset of this movie's low budget. I'm not gonna actually go wander around in the woods in my underwear. I don't want to do it. But there was no ego in this performance.
No.
He completely commits to this performance. I mean, he wrote the movie. I'm sure he's involved in the creation, but I found it heartwarming how much of 100% effort he gave the whole time. It's such a well put together movie. I don't know who it's for or why it was made.
For me.
And that's kind of my consensus on this movie. It's not for me. This is not my type of movie. But I just sitting there admiring the craft, even if it was losing me at points because it was a little bloated.
Yeah.
I was never at any point like they didn't care.
You know who I think this movie's kind of for? Is I think aside from like the nostalgia bits that I really enjoyed about it, I'm one of the people who kind of bemoans that nobody tries at comedy anymore.
Right.
Like,
we have lost comedy
yeah.
outside of like streaming crap, like high effort comedy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, no one's, they're not making Talladega Nights, right? They're not making Wet Hot American Summer. Like, that's just not, nobody's even trying.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Adam Sandler just farts something out once a year, and that's just what you get. And, but the problem is, like, it's tough to go back. Like, I actually went and watched Forgetting Sarah Marshall, like, last weekend. I'd never seen it, right? It was funny. But, like, I know if I watched that when I was 12, I would have died.
Yeah.
And, like, I was like...
I love that movie. I think it's very funny, yeah.
But, like, for the first... Like, it's hard to go back, is my point. Like, it's comedy is kind of a product of the moment in a lot of ways. And I think if you're really looking to just sit down and, like, have a cozy laugh in front of a movie in 2024 that is something fresh, and you've just kind of seen what's out there, that's kind of who this movie's for.
That's true.
This is it's a change up in the space of, like, cozy, funny... just like movies made with love.
Yeah. Yeah, and to that point, I mean, if these guys tried to make a conventional comedy, I think the budget would be more apparent. Doing it this super stylized way lets you kind of hide the budget in creative ways. It costs more to make because they're doing that, but then it draws less comparisons too. Like, we're not sitting here saying it's just less funny than Wet Hot American Summer.
Yeah.
Because it's so stylistically different that we put it in its own category.
It's less funny than City Lights. Like, I don't...
Yeah, exactly. So...
I would be very interested to be able to see the master before they applied the black and white.
Yeah.
To see how garbage it would look.
Just like the audio of the woods and the guy like,
And he's just like standing in like green foam that you don't know is the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not a ton more to say about this movie, I guess.
Unless there's any other bits we want to call out.
Probably, like, the one that got me going, it was very early in the movie when he's first trying to trap the rabbits. When he makes the snowman of, like, the hot lady rabbit with the big boobs to try and lure them in, and the two rabbits walk by, and then they turn and the two rabbits are just holding hands. And he just goes, oh.
Yeah, his reaction, that was one of my favorite bits, because his reaction is so sincere and sweet. He's,
There's like an indigenous guy who's just another fur trader, and he has a horse that's just two guys in the horse costume, and it's the worst costume.
The guy's face is just in it.
And there's a point where the horse gets stepped on, and it's just the two guys. I mean, I think there's so much of the stuff that you think was going to be a one-off and then it's used effectively later.
Like when he finds the snow trails of the weird patterns,
yeah.
And then later sees the beavers were running tests on the guy
Yeah.
and like the gyroscope that's being like spun at high speeds.
It's just really indicative of a script that has just been gone over and over so many times. Like, I just have to imagine this guy's been working on this for like 10 years.
Yeah. Every time he thinks of a bit, just write it down,
and
put
just
it in.
it all tied together. It sanded off all the edges like really, really well. Aside from it being just a little too long, and that's the thing. Is like I feel like the filmmaker and his friends watching this don't think it's too long.
No,
and I don't think
they could have gone another hour. They just ran out of money.
I don't think it is like definitely too long. But I mean I agree that probably they could have trimmed some out, but it never really dragged that much for me.
It depends who you are. If you were the type of person waiting for a new silent film era slapstick comedy, you probably want this sucker to be 3.5 hours. If you're me, who didn't even know what this movie was,
right.
I'm okay with this being a tight 80 minutes. You know what I mean? I don't need this to be an hour 47. That was a little overzealous. So it's audience dependent. Like,
right.
You're probably not going to get another one of these. So maybe it should have been longer. Who knows?
Right.
I'm going to do a little secret review of another movie within this discussion of 100 Beavers that you and I have been meaning to talk about for a long time, and it weirdly lines up. I finally watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
You did!
Finally watched it. One of your favorite movies.
Ever. Yeah, absolutely. Best soundtrack, maybe
ever. And it is one of the greatest films I've ever seen. It is incredible. It's not on my personal top 5, let's say. Like, it just didn't click in the same way some of my favorites are. But at a critical level, I think it's easy A+. That is one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's so tight. And when I think like what is like the quintessential American film, that's got to be a contender. Like if you were going to put in a time capsule of what is an American movie, that is like from the actors to the director to the setting being a time capsule of Prohibition era US, that is like almost a perfect American movie in one package.
I like that.
And so I absolutely loved it. But I was reminded of it watching Hundreds of Beavers in a weird way because Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's Homer's Odyssey.
Yeah.
Is just kind of wandering around. There's a loose plot thread of we're gonna go find the treasure. But the movie is just vignette, 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 and the treasure at the end doesn't matter. It was never about that.
It is also fairly like random and slapstick.
Yeah,
like,
random, slapstick. They kind of end up where they left off. It's really just wandering around this little tight geography and little vignettes. There's also weird, what seem like one-off jokes that pay off later, like the governor keeps showing up in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I'm like, oh, that's actually going to be a storyline. I thought that was a one joke at the radio station.
When George Nelson shows back up.
Yep. Or when even the Soggy Bottom Boys being a band, I thought that was a one-scene joke, and that becomes the entire climax of the film. Mm-hmm. So I'm watching Hundreds of Beavers, and I'm like, this is kind of like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
That's... I think you've taken the award for Green Corner Most Tenuous Connection, and you've earned it. I think it's fair, but I think you've earned that award.
And, is it because those are the two movies I watched this week? No. It's because they're very similar.
Well, I watched Forgetting Sarah Marshall in this, and I got nothing.
No,
so
they weren't related. The impossible task of scoring. This is certainly the hardest movie to score that I have done on our show. Mm-hmm. You want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. My review has even shifted throughout our conversation because I do think this movie would lend to a group watch.
Yes.
And I think that
like most comedy, I think.
Bonding over this movie with a group or watching it with someone and laughing will be a very different experience than me sitting down to watch this, literally not knowing what genre of film it was.
I think we need to open ourselves to that because I had the same thought after Streets of Fire that I was like, this movie would have gone up a bunch if we all just gotten drunk and watched it as a crew.
Yeah.
But I think this is another movie. Like, I just think comedy or things that, well, Streets of Fire is not explicitly a comedy, but things that are going to be funny when you watch them.
Yeah.
You just got to watch them in the right setting.
It's tough to watch a train punch while you're by yourself.
It's tough.
It's tough. It's tough to know how to feel.
This is not the Bayside.
There's something back in Richmond I gotta take care of.
What are you talking about?
My critical review is Green Takes. As always, we'll do our critical review and then our personal. I don't know what else to do other than give this movie an A. Because what did they do wrong? We usually watch movies and I can be like, I'm familiar enough with the genre and filmmaking to, even as not a filmmaker, I can be like, I would have done this, I would have done this. This is so far off on its own thing that I'm like, short of tightening the script, which I don't even know if that's right. That's the only real actual critical complaint I give. So
there's like 8 lines.
I'm just tearing the Band-Aid off. I'm giving it an A. I don't care. I don't understand if it should. Maybe it's an F. You could tell me either. I don't know, but I'm gonna give it an A because I genuinely think, and I said this earlier on, if you gave Martin Scorsese, if you gave the Coen brothers $10 million and they said make a silent film era accurate slapstick, I don't think theirs would be better necessarily. It would be tough to be better than this, doing this. Like, this is it. They did it. So I'm going to give it an A. I'm going to give it an A critically. You know what? Usually we do both, but let's change it up. You do your critical now, and then we'll come back for the personal.
I was thinking B+. All right. Well, what I was going to do, I was honestly going to come into this. I thought of it like when we were about to talk the reviews, I was going to be like, we just need to throw out critical. This is a movie that can only be scored
I was thinking this doesn't exist as a...
Okay, they made no mistakes. It is obviously a very specific movie for very specific people. I just think that the fact that it's a little bloated, I think they could, I'm not saying should, but I think they could have done more to make it a little more mass marketable. I don't think it would have been better, but I think you would have improved the experience of the average person watching this if you had tightened it up a little bit, and that's just enough for me to kind of be like, and also just the fact that it is very, it is limited in scope, and they didn't, I can't even say it's limited in scope. They went crazy with this movie.
The Beaver Dam is like a scene out of Brazil.
Screw it, it's an A. I don't know
It's
what
an
you want me to
A.
say. It's an A. And then personally, I'm going to go with an A because I don't think it's quite an A+, but my initial experience on watching it is like amongst the top 5 like comedies I've ever watched. And like I don't think it quite gets to A+, just because I think that's going to fade. And like I wasn't like dying laughing the whole time, but I got out of that and I was like, dang, I really enjoyed every minute of that. So,
Fair enough. There's never been a movie more that I would not balk at someone giving an A+ or an F.
yeah.
There's no...
If you turn this off after 5 minutes and hated it and think we're morons, like, yeah, fine.
No, you're
Correct.
right. You're also right if you loved it.
Yeah.
So as a reminder, I gave it critically an A. My personal is gonna have a big asterisk on it. Look, it's got an asterisk. I'm gonna go personal C+.
Okay.
Because I didn't have this great of experience watching it. I was more admiring it.
Right.
I appreciated it. I respected it. The asterisk is, if I watch this with friends, this could easily bump up, I don't think to A for me, but certainly up to at least B+.
I think I gave the same asterisk to Streets of Fire.
Yeah.
I think I said the exact same. We need a term for this.
Yeah, we need a term for that.
It's a train punch movie.
What are you talking about?
I'm giving it a train punch C+. Okay? A solo watch C+, train punch reach to B+. That's my personal score for this movie. Because there was a section in the middle where he was still in the woods and still setting traps, where I pulled my phone out a bit, and I don't go on my phone in movies.
Yeah.
But I was locked in at the end, and I was laughing at the song at the beginning. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this friggin' movie. So I'm gonna go C+ personal and critical A. I don't know how else to do it. That's the only way I can split the average.
That's fine. I'm going A and A. I can't. Yeah.
I like that I talked you into a critical A, even though my personal is lower.
I think it's fine. Like, I don't know. The score matters a lot more for other movies.
It does.
I loved it, and if you've enjoyed hearing us talk about it, then go watch it. You'll like it quite a bit.
And if you're the one guy that was waiting for a movie like this, it's here. It's arrived. The wait is over.
You finally got there. Well, thank you all so much for coming and checking out our green take with our new, not quite matching, but similar green corner hats.
If I color grade this episode horribly, they'll be the same color.
Yeah, do black and white.
Hey, we can do
there
that.
you go.
Make sure to like and subscribe, check out our Patreon, and stay tuned for more popular film reviews like Hundreds of Beavers.
Let us know what you thought of it. I mean, I know some people on the internet have watched it. Hopefully. If any of our viewers have watched it, let us know what you thought. We're really curious.
Bonk.